welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And if you have been watching Embracing the Fight since January of 2022, you know that Embracing the Fight is about normalizing the conversation surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. So I started the conversation off because of the bout I was having with thyroid cancer that I had it removed in December of 2021. And I decided that, you know what, it's time out to stop, letting folks know what's going on in your life when it comes to your health. Because, little did I know it's a whole community of people running around here, without thyroids because of various issues, whether they had hypo or hyperthyroidism, or whether they just had, thyroid cancer like me. And once I saw, what it was like to be a part of a community, not saying that, I'm like, oh, pick me, I want to have, cancer, but no, it lessened and softened the blow of having cancer because you see so many people that are getting through it. So I'm asking that you take a moment, click like, click share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I mean, it's free. And you know how that is. It takes just a second to say subscribe or share. It's free and it helps to save a life potentially. I'm not saying, that's what's going to automatically happen, but it can give someone some information that they may need that will help them to get through what they're going through. So, with all that being said, we haven't, checked in a while to see what you guys have been, talking about or what things that you've been going through. So let me just go ahead and tell you that this is episode 58, health discussions. Because, since I've been doing Embracing the Fight, I've had some very, interesting discussions with people, concerning their health. Let me give you an example. So I was in the office and I was talking with one of the ladies that I work with, and she was talking about, her father-in-law and how he was, in his 90s and had never, been sick a day. And all it took was him falling one day and he fractured a bone. And once he fractured that bone, he just never, bounced back from it. And just hearing, what he went through, it was like the people that were there to help him were more or less, looking at symptoms and trying to treat them, but they weren't necessarily looking at the person, the whole person. I say that because at one point she was saying that he was speaking and what he was saying was kind of incoherent and it wasn't like him, but of course they're looking at the age of the person and they're saying, oh, well, it's that's normal, somebody that age, when that wasn't normal. And it took his normal doctor, his primary physician, to actually step in and say, no, he is dying. He needs to go to hospice. Imagine being that family member and you hear that. That has to be extremely, difficult for a person to actually deal with. And we got on that discussion because I was telling her how important it is to know, what your parents, are dealing with, or those elderly family members that don't necessarily, have kids or anyone, to look after them. Because if they don't have anything set up, let's just look at estate planning, right? If they've taken the time to sit down and split up, their assets and how they want this to go there and that to go there, would you think it would be just as prudent for them to, assign a power of attorney? Someone who is going to look after them when they can no longer look after themselves. Because even if someone has written you into their will, if they have made you a part of their estate plan, but they haven't named you as power of attorney, there's nothing that person can do on your behalf until you pass away. So it's not like they can get your medical records. They can't make any decisions for you. So if you don't have a living will, sure, they can, some hospitals, some doctors, they'll possibly ask the family what they want to do, but legally, they don't necessarily have to do that if the person who is receiving the care hasn't assigned anyone as a power of attorney, or if they don't have like a living will. So that's something you really need to think about, when you are caring for yourself and when you're caring for those elderly family members. Make sure that you know what their advanced directives are. I know it's not kind of conversation that you want to have, but you want to have a conversation while they can still talk to you. They can still tell you, because it's too late, once they're gone, and then, you're reaching for things and you're trying to figure, things out. And that can be extremely frustrating. And how do you properly grieve when you have all these things, hanging over you that you have to catch up with and figure out now, that they're gone, right? So let's not do that. Let's see what we can do to either become the power of attorney or make sure that they have one. All right, so another health discussion that I was talking with my dad. So my dad was telling me about all these different, doctors that he was going to. And I started thinking, I was like, well, darn, every time he goes to a doctor, if he doesn't carry the information from one doctor to the next doctor, those doctors don't like sit down at a table and share information. Like, for instance, if he were to go see a cardiologist, a urologist, and a radiologist, they don't all sit in a room and say, hey, this is what we found out. No, what they do is they give him an individual diagnosis, and it becomes a part, of his medical history at that particular doctor's office, unless the doctor is in a connected health system. So for instance, you go to a doctor, right? And this doctor is in one group, but then, God forbid, an ambulance has to come and pick you up from your home. And you can talk at this point and they ask you where you want to go, then you can tell them, the ER that is attached to where your particular doctor is, or someone knows your doctor, or there's a way that your doctor can be, contacted because they're in the same group. But say you can't talk, and say they just take you to an ER that they think is good, or one that can deal with whatever the issue is that you had. Well, once they treat it and you leave, are you thinking about getting your medical records, and taking them with you to share with your primary physician, or do you just go back and tell them what happened? So it's best to be able to get your information so you can take it to all your doctors. So this is what I would suggest you do if you don't go to a hospital that's like connected to your different physicians. Make sure you get a copy of all of the diagnoses that you have. That way, when you go from one doctor's office to another doctor's office, you can provide it to them. Or, if they had electronic access that you can give to your doctors, make sure you know your doctor's full name, their phone number, and the address of their actual practice, and the fax number. That way, the medical records can be shared, because this lessens, the time that they would have to take to actually go and try to get this information, on you, especially if they didn't know that you had to go to the ER over here, or you had to go to urgent care over here for this or for that, or say you just happen to go to like a clinic of some sort. Like if you just happen to be out of the country and you get treated for an illness there, and you just go home, you don't think nothing else about it, but now this affects something or some other medication that you're taking, but you're not really thinking about that because you think you're healed, or you think whatever it is, it's been corrected. Well, that's not the way to think. Anytime that you go to a hospital, whether it's an ER, an urgent care, or just a regular scheduled visit, or if you're going to like get a specialty or something done, like a MRI, a CT scan, x-ray, anything like that, if you're going to go somewhere like that, make sure that your primary physician has all of it. Make sure that any special doctor that you have or any specialist that you have, make sure that they have the information as well, because it will totally change the face of what they will or will not do when it comes to your care. Let me give you an example. Imagine if you have a pacemaker in your body and say it's not one of the pacemakers that was made in the last, say, 10 to 15 years, right? All pacemakers come with an information card. And on the information card, it tells you whether or not it's MRI compatible. So imagine you go to have an MRI done, and because you've been referred by another doctor, the radiologist and the people there automatically assume, okay, everything should be okay because the doctor that referred them is the one who checked everything out. It's not necessarily the case, because what if, say you've gotten I don't know, a urologist, and they tell you we want to do a CT scan, right? Or we want to do an MRI. Say they want to do an MRI. But your cardiologist is the one that knows that you have a pacemaker, not your urologist, unless you tell them, or you've had your medical records shared. So let's just say you're that person. You go in there, they do the MRI, you start feeling weird. You don't know what's going on. You end up going to the hospital because now you've had, a heart attack, or you've had some type of heart event. And they find that the MRI actually killed the pacemaker that's in your body. This could have been prevented if you'd had the information card that said whether or not it was MRI compatible or not. And then if you have one that is MRI compatible, sometimes they have certain things that you have to follow in order to make sure that the pacemaker is not damaged as well. So you really need to take the time to talk with your elderly family members, friends, people that you're caring for, to make sure that all of the doctors that they're seeing, that they all have the same information so they can provide the greatest amount of care and the right amount of care. Because I would rather them have way too much information than not enough when they're making a decision that will affect the health of someone that I love. Okay. So on the flip side of also having those connected networks, something like, say, radiologists, they tend to have separate, like, tower radiology or separate groups, but usually radiologists, the x-rays and MRIs and CT scans, all that kind of stuff is available for the doctors to, choose. Just like with lab work, if you go to a lab like Quest, diagnostics, or, something of that nature, when you go there, any doctor can pull it up as long as you can tell them, hey, I just had a blood draw on, XYZ day for these things. So they're not going to have you sent again to get you stuck again for you to do the same test when all they got to do is go into this database, and get this information. So this helps save time, and this helps, to save you from getting stuck with a needle again, or whoever it is that you're caring for. They won't necessarily get stuck, with a needle again. So another thing that I want you to really think about when you are helping to care, for a person other than yourself, when you have their health information, make sure that you keep it like organized and orderly. Make sure it's not like a little piece over here, a little piece over there. Because, say, for instance, like right now, if I'll just be honest, if you would come to my house and start asking me for medical information, I could find it, but it's not all in one central location. So I'm talking to myself right now. I'm telling myself this is what I need to do too, because I have all of the photographs from when they did the arthroscopic surgery of my knee. I have all the information from when they removed the fibroids, all the pictures. I got all that stuff. And I've never wanted to be like really in biology because the sight of blood just gave me the heebie-jeebies in a sense. But I probably could stand it now. But I mean, I even have the records from when they had to stick needles, in my eye because I had blood vessels that were leaking in my eye. But I have all of these things. They're just not together. So I need them to get together and be a little family. So if I ever need to carry this information or share this information, I can do that. So if you're caring for someone, make sure you don't have a little piece here, a little piece there. Get your banker's box. Get some folders and label it, write it down. That way, it's easily accessible. And if you're not a paper person, sure, you can scan it, and make a file on the computer. That way it's easy to email and you'll have to, walk around with this big old box, full of stuff. Or, you could fax it yourself. You can make sure that it gets, to the intended destination. So another thing that I wonder if you guys are doing, are you checking on your friends? Are you asking your friends, how you doing and really meaning it and not just saying how you doing so they can say fine and you can just jump on whatever it is you want to talk about? Let's not do that. Let's ask our friends really how they're doing. How's their health? How are they feeling? Because I notice when you go to the doctor now, they ask you, have you had any days where, you've had, what is it, feelings of sadness, or you've been lonely and all this kind of stuff. And I was like tempted to say, yeah, one time to see if they were going to be like, oh, let me give you a date. Let me introduce you to this guy. Not. So I always say, no, I don't have days like that. Now I ain't gonna lie, I had them before, but I hadn't had them recently. And it seemed like every appointment I've been to as of late, they keep asking me that. I'm like, darn, is this something I got on my face? But no, it's protocol. It's protocol. They have to ask this question. So are you doing that? Are you asking your friends that? Are you asking the people surrounding you that question? Because I'll tell you another story. There was a guy that I really, let's see, how can I do this without pointing to him? Okay, I won't say where he was, but there was a guy that I stopped and I asked him how he was doing. And he had this look on his face. And I could tell, he really wanted to say some more. There was some more, to this story. So I was like, are you really okay? And he was like, no, I'm not okay. So I was like, oh goodness. Okay, so what's going on? And he was like, I'm not right in the head. I was like, oh no, 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 no. You can't say that. Not about yourself. I said, the way you feel about yourself is what you should truly, project in the world. Sure, I can say that because by nature I'm a pretty happy person. But this guy, he stopped me and was like, I don't have any friends really. He was like, because when I graduated high school, all of my friends, everybody got married, they had their own families, and I'm just kind of here by myself. And, I don't do anything, I don't go anywhere. So then I was like, oh, do you go to church? He said, I used to. But now, church has more of a political agenda and they really don't care about people. So I just kind of feel like I'm on an island, I don't know if he has parents or anything like that because I didn't want to make him cry or make it, any worse. But I then asked him, I was like, well, so what is something you enjoy? And he said, well, I'm thinking about, going to a comedy club. And I was like, you should absolutely go. I was like, anytime you feel like you should go somewhere and it's safe for you to go by yourself, go and enjoy yourself because you never know, who you can meet and how your life can change when you go. So then I saw him today, actually, earlier today. And I asked him, I was like, hey, how's it going? How you doing? And he was like, well, I decided to go to the comedy show. He was so excited. He was smiling ear to ear. And he was like, I decided to go to the comedy show. You were so right. Thank you for taking a moment to really ask, how I was doing because nobody ever asked or anything like that. But I know that I should keep my spirits lifted because I'm a good person and there's so much more that I have to live for. And at that moment, I realized that this man could have committed suicide if I never stopped to ask him. So who is it that you walk past today that you could have stopped and said, really, how are you doing? You could have connected with them. You could have changed their life. Now, don't beat yourself up about it. Just next time, take a moment and actually talk to that person, the next person that God sends your way. Don't let them, have to go to the doctor and the doctor have to ask them, are you having moments of depression? Are you feeling down? No, we as individuals, when we walk past people or we drive past cars full of people all the time, or you're in the store and you just walk past a bunch of different people that you don't know, there is someone that is hurting. there is someone that needs a kind word, a hug, a touch, something. I had a lady come up to me one day and she just looked at me and she said, "You know what? My daughter passed away. And your smile reminds me so much of her." She was like, "Don't stop smiling." She said, this did my heart well today. And I mean, it was like overwhelming sadness that hit me that this lady, is grieving her daughter. But at the same time, I had some little sour thoughts in my own little head. And I almost stopped smiling, not because I saw her looking at me, but sometimes you just be smiling, you're like, oh, people think I'm crazy. I'm just walking around with this big cheesy smile on my face. Whatever. No. That lady saw the smile and it changed the trajectory of her day. So smile, be kind, do what you can to help others, and make sure that you're talking to people. Don't ostracize folks. Don't become a hermit. And I'm talking to myself with that too, because the lady told me the other day, she was like, "Don't be a hermit." She wanted me to come to like a singles cruise. And I'm just gonna be honest, y'all. I don't really go to stuff like that because it's usually packed with women. And then I ask, "Hey, how did that thing go?" And they be like, "Oh, it was like 80 women there and two guys." And her response was to me. She said, "You know what? It might have been 80 women there and two guys. One of them guys might have been for you, but you'll never know because you didn't go." Like, really? I just nodded and smiled. I said, "You know what? You know better than I do, because honey, I still wasn't going. I'm not going." But anyway, this episode is about making sure that you're still having those health discussions, whether it's with your children, because I know, we talked about, doing it for older people, but if we start talking to our kids about this sort of thing now, it becomes ingrained in them to know that once they get older, that they can do it for us. And then they in turn could ingrain it into their kids and they could do it for them. This is a process that starts and it has to keep going in order for it to be successful. So please, 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 today, just take a moment, call somebody else, just say, "Hey, how you doing?" And if you know someone that's like in the hospital right now, somebody who's just had surgery, or someone who received a very tough diagnosis, take a moment to utter a prayer for them. Take a moment to call and check on them. And if you're not wanting to call and check on folks, baby, send a text. Let them know you care. Because one of the toughest things is to go through an illness and feel like you're alone, like you have no one. When all the while people might have been thinking about you, but they never had a way that they thought would be effective to reach you. So just be open, because sometimes you got folks that are dealing with things themselves, and you'll be saying, "Oh, well, so and so didn't call me and they ain't check on me, so I'm gonna call and check on them." Don't do that, because then what happens when that person becomes ill and you no longer can talk to them anymore? All because your feelings were hurt. Now you have no opportunity for redemption. Let's not do that. Embracing the fight is about normalizing the conversation surrounding physical and mental issues and concerns, not about being silent, watching, standing by. I need you to take an active role and help me embrace the fight. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Embracing the Fight, episode 58, Health Discussions. Have an absolutely amazing day.